Welcome to a special dispatch of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show on January 20th, 2021. My name is Andy Z. I'm the host of the show, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles. Tonight, we're bringing you a special dispatch that's been posted on revcom.us, the website. It's a statement on the inauguration of Joe Biden. Today, Joe Biden was inaugurated as President of the United States and Kamala Harris as Vice President. This followed months of lies by Donald Trump that he, Trump, had won the election. And it followed an armed fascist coup, an attempt by forces called forth and led by Trump to overturn the result of the presidential election at Congress's scheduled final certification of the vote on January 6th. Biden now has the reins of office, and Trump can no longer wield state power to consolidate fascism. Had Trump succeeded in this, the consequences could have been incalculable horror, including the elimination of democratic and civil rights. The fact that people decisively voted Trump out and that Trump could not overturn the vote is important and very good. The fact that fascism no longer has its claws in the executive branch of the most powerful country in the world is very good. It is a good day for humanity and is a good day for any struggle for progressive change. At the same time, 75 million people voted for the fascist Trump. The fascists continue to dominate other critical branches of the government, federal and state, and continue to infest law enforcement and the military. The Christian fascist network of schools, churches, media, and political action funds, as well as the fascist media generally, remain intact. This is real. Biden's inauguration posed a stark contrast to the past 4 years of Trump, and many people felt that. Yet, Biden's calls for unity and his claims that America is essentially good cannot cover over the real crimes of this country under Democratic or Republican administrations alike, nor can those claims overcome the profound divisions that exist in this country. Divisions that are inextricably woven into the real historical fabric and actual everyday functioning of this society. They cannot put the forces back in the bottle that have both driven forward and been called forth by this fascism: economic, social, and political forces. Further, Biden's talk of systemic racism cannot forever hide the name of the system that birthed, fed, and requires this racism: capitalism, imperialism. His talk of restoring American leadership in the world cannot change the bloody, plundering record and leadership of that same imperialist system for centuries. There's much more to say on the horrors of the normal functioning of this system and the fascism that it gave rise to, and especially on what is the solution to all of this: an actual revolution on the basis of the new communism brought forward by Bob Avakian. As we said earlier this week on revcom.us, Bob Avakian has developed a way out of this madness, a strategy for an actual revolution. And on that basis, the vision of a new society concretized in the Constitution for a New Socialist Republic in North America, which BA authored. It is a fact that nowhere else in any actual proposed founding or guiding document of any government is there anything like not only the protection, but the provision for dissent and intellectual and cultural ferment that is embodied in this Constitution. While this has, as its solid core, a grounding in the socialist transformation of the economy, with the goal of abolishing all exploitation and the corresponding transformation of the social relations and political institutions to uproot all oppressions, and the promotion through the educational system and in society as a whole of an approach that will, quote, enable people to pursue the truth wherever it leads, with the spirit of critical thinking and scientific curiosity, and in this way to continually learn about the world and be better able to contribute to changing it in accordance with the fundamental interests of humanity. At this critical time, it will matter for you to read the accompanying piece to this talk, that you can find on revcom.us, titled, "What Gave Rise to the Fascism of Trump and Why This Will Not Go Away and then dig into and reflect on the work by Bob Avakian it points to. We will be saying more here and on revcom.us, and go to revcom.us this coming Monday in the morning. And then next Thursday, January 28th at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be presenting a special YouTube program on the current situation and what is to be done. Then on Sunday, January 31st, tune into a special live stream to raise funds for the Get Organized for an Actual Revolution tour at 6 p.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Pacific Time. Then on Thursday, February 4th, begins the second season of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, our second season premiere. Now you can catch up on last year's shows. And before we close today, we want to play for you a special segment of the speech from which we take our name. BA Speaks Revolution Nothing Less, called the Rosetta Stone. Watch it.
All this is why we need leadership. And it sets the terms for what kind of leadership is needed. There are profound divisions in this society and in the world as a whole. Divisions between classes, nations, men and women, between those who do intellectual work and those who do physical work, and other major divisions. These contradictions can't just be wished away. We cannot get beyond them by pretending they don't exist, or that they don't have any effect and consequences, or by redefining reality in our minds. This is not just somehow a matter of narratives, of different versions of reality, nor will we get where we need to go by different people and different identity groups insisting on their own narratives in place of and in opposition to confronting and radically transforming the actual reality we are up against and the possibilities for change that lie within this reality. Here I just want to read something from Basics as food for thought. I won't go into it here, but it's something to think about. Maybe it'll come up in the Q&A, but it can be pursued and should be pursued beyond that. Basics 410 speaks to this critical point. I'm just going to put it out, food for thought. Why is this so, or is it so? For humanity to advance beyond a state in which might makes right, and where things ultimately come down to raw power relations, will require as a fundamental element in this advance an approach to understanding things, an epistemology which recognizes that reality and truth are objective and do not vary in accordance with, nor depend on, different narratives, and how much authority an idea or narrative may have behind it, or how much power and force can be wielded on behalf of any particular idea or narrative at any given point. The question is this true, and if so, why is it true that it's important to have this understanding in order for humanity to advance beyond a state in which might makes right and things are reduced to raw power relations? To return to the question of leadership, with which this has a great deal to do, we need leadership with a scientific understanding and a scientific method and approach to guide this struggle through all the complications and difficulties, all the twists and turns to finally overcome all these divisions. And first of all, to lead people to prepare for, and then when the conditions have been brought into being, to wage the all-out revolutionary struggle to bring this monstrosity of a system down and bring into being a new system founded in radically different relations and with radically different institutions and guided by radically different ways of thinking that can establish a whole new foundation from which to carry forward this struggle, together with people throughout the globe, toward the goal of communism and the end to any and all forms in which one part of humanity enslaves and degrades another part, and in which the functioning of human society leads to the destruction of the natural environment. Where we can get it, we need the collective leadership of a communist vanguard, that core of leadership, and where we have it, we need to take the greatest advantage of outstanding individual leaders who come forward. All this is a precious resource for oppressed people, while at the same time, it is a very serious responsibility for those leading people. Without communist leadership, without leadership that bases itself on and proceeds from the most advanced understanding of communist theory and principles, applying the science of communism to lead people while also learning from them, the cold reality is that the most oppressed masses will be kept out and kept down, messed over and dictated over once again. There will be no real revolution and no new society aiming for a whole new world. Here I think of the Rosetta Stone. When Napoleon invaded Egypt a couple of hundred years ago, they discovered, or I guess I should say rediscovered, the Rosetta Stone, which was sort of like a tablet that had a story, I won't say a narrative, had a story written in different languages. On the top were hieroglyphics. Underneath that was Greek, and then what's come to be called Demotic. The hieroglyphics were the language, as it turned out, of the pharaohs in the upper crust of ancient Egypt. The Greek was Greek. And the Demotic was the language of the ordinary people in the in ancient Egypt. They're still apparently working out some aspects of the Demotic. But fairly quickly, they were able to do enough to tell, using the Greek, and then going back and forth between the Greek and the hieroglyphics, that this was the same story being told in these different languages, and it became, as you know, it's a metaphor now, it became a key to opening up all kinds of knowledge. Because the scholars could use the Greek not only to find out what was being said in the hieroglyphic, which turned out it was the same thing as in the Greek, but it opened the key to being able to understand the hieroglyphic written language in a more overall sense. And this opened up all kinds of things which had been previously unknown to people since the time of ancient Egypt. For the masses, especially the most oppressed masses, communism and communist leadership is the Rosetta Stone they need. Reality is very complex. It seems often overwhelming, especially to people struggling just to survive and get through. Tomorrow, your son is shot by the police. The next day, your daughter turns sick and you have no health insurance. Then along comes a movement like Occupy, which says we shouldn't have any leadership. We should have a horizontal organization where everybody can participate equally. Of course, all the real leaders are conspiring behind the scenes. But even leaving that aside and taking that its best interpretation, the problem is you're a woman in Brooklyn in a housing project or in Harlem dealing with the lives of 10 people that depend on you, children and grandmas and all kinds of other people, trying to keep all this together and keep everybody alive and out of trouble. You hear about the Occupy thing, it's difficult for you to even go down there. And then if you get down there, they can do the nice mic checks and everything else. But you're going to be overwhelmed by what they're talking about. You have no experience in this whole thing. You are in the company of graduate students from elite Ivy League universities who have a familiarity and are conversant with all this political discourse. You have things to say and people may even listen to you, but despite the declarations that everybody's going to participate equally, do you really think that this person, this woman coming down from Harlem is going to be able to join in an effective way on the same basis of people who have a great running head start in their whole lives and in their college and graduate school educations? And furthermore, we have the problem that not only is there the ruling class, but there are these people out of the middle class who bring faulty Greek to the translation of the Rosetta Stone, who present, according to their own prejudices and their own distortions and their own misunderstandings, a false understanding and vision of reality, and impose that over reality. And so if you're one of the basic people trying to swim in all this, without the leadership that enables you to penetrate beneath the surface and understand the different parts of reality, without the Rosetta Stone of communism and communist leadership, you're going to be shut down. You're going to be discouraged from even trying to take part after a short time. You are not going to be able to play a conscious role in shaping the development of this movement and more broadly the struggle. The Rosetta Stone opens up all kinds of avenues and possibilities for knowledge. Communism and communist leadership provides the means for masses of people to penetrate beneath the reality, to fight through the seemingly overwhelming difficulty of understanding these things and finding the links and the interconnection and the patterns of things, and to be able to consciously act to change the world on that basis. But with this Rosetta Stone of communism and communist leadership, the masses can not only become active fighters to change the world, but they can increasingly themselves become scholars of the language of changing the world. And this is what the masses of people need, and we're not going to let anyone with their distorted translations tell us that we should not be giving the masses of people the opportunity to have this leadership. I just want to touch on a couple of quick points and then move to a conclusion. I thank you all for hanging in with me all this time. Something that's out there that I wanted to speak to in terms of leadership and my own leadership in particular is I know this goes on in whispers, or some people say this among themselves if they don't always say it out loud. Especially among people who've had the bitter experience of being betrayed by leaders, in particular great white fathers. They say, "BA, why do you have to be white? Why couldn't you be black or something?" Now, I used to get this back in high school. Back in the days at Berkeley High School where I went to school, my black friends would often say to me, "Bobby," that's what they used to call me back then, "Bobby, it's a shame you're white. You would make a really great brother." Now, I've always considered that the highest of compliments. But here's the thing. If I were black, I wouldn't be Latino. If I were half black and half Latino, or part black, part Asian, part Latino, and part Native American, and still from America, I wouldn't be from the other parts of the world that are dominated and plundered by American imperialism. I wouldn't be Bangladeshi or Iranian or Arab, for example. If I were male, I wouldn't be female. If I were female and straight, I wouldn't be gay, and so on, and so on, and so on. And where does this end? And really, what is this all about? Once more, we're back to the question, what is the leadership we need? Well, that depends on what we're striving for. It's back to the big question. Why are we in the situation we're in today? Can anything be done to really change this? And if so, what is that change? And how can that change be brought about? To put it another, perhaps simpler way, what is the problem and what is the solution? That tells us what we need to be aiming for, and therefore what kind of leadership we need. Now, as a matter of fact, what I am today is in very important ways and to a very great degree the result of the influence of black people in their struggle, although there have been other influences that have also played an important part in my development. But the most important thing is this. At a certain point, I made a leap to becoming a revolutionary and a communist. And that is a leap that people, more and more people, have to make who want to see an end to all this madness and want a whole new liberating reality for humanity. If we want a world where never again will another youth be shot down by marauding, murderous police, where never again will a woman be raped or brutalized, where never again will masses of women and men be treated in any way as less than fully human, where never again will children die in huge numbers in their infancy, and never again will generation after generation face the same killing madness. If we want a world where all this is finally ended, along with 1,000 other outrages that seem so much a natural part of the human condition, but in fact are totally unnecessary at this point in human history, we need communist leadership, the most advanced, seriously scientific, and far-seeing communist leadership we can get. Many people also say, well, if BA is our leader, the leader of this revolution, then we need to be able to see him and talk to him directly. But the point is, what someone stands for and where this will lead people. What will happen if that person's ideas are taken up and fought for? That is the fundamental question, not whether you can see somebody and literally touch them. And there is the fact, let's be real here, revolution, if it's going to succeed, is going to involve millions and millions of people. And while it is a great thing to have the chance to be among and talk to some of these people who will be part of this revolution, still there are bigger things that have to be kept in mind, including how the powers that be look at and seek to deal with revolutionary leaders. And the fact is that even if I devoted the rest of my life to this, there is no way that I could personally meet with anything more than a small part of the millions who must be part of this revolution. We have launched a campaign which we call BA Everywhere to get this new synthesis of communism, the body of work, the method of approach, and the leadership that is involved with this out very broadly in society. We still have much work to do on that, and we need to go out and raise big money from all kinds of people and get big contributions of ideas, people giving 50 cents or $50,000 and contributing all kinds of ideas of how we can actually break through and get this revolution, the need for this revolution and the leadership we have for this revolution and the content of this revolution out broadly impacting society in a big way. This is what we need to be doing. And in carrying this out in a real sense, the answer to the question, where is BA, needs to be everywhere. This is how the question has to be understood and approached. How can you tell if a leader in a party are for real and will lead things where they need to go? In most basic terms, this is a matter of line, as we say, or to put it another way, a matter of policy and guidelines for the struggle. But above all, a matter of outlook and method and basic strategy and program that set the terms in a fundamental sense for how the struggle should be carried out and carry forward and toward what ends, all along the way and in an overall way. What line is put forward by a leader or group? How is that line carried out and to what effect? Those are the key questions. Now, defending and protecting leadership, as we have put it in our party, building a wall of support and defense around leadership which really does represent the revolutionary way forward. Working to defeat attacks on this leadership and to turn this into further exposure of this system and resistance against its completely illegitimate rule. This is a crucial part of building the movement for revolution and working to bring into being the basis for revolution and then actually making this revolution when the time is right, when the conditions have been brought into being, and the millions and millions who must make this revolution are ready and determined to fight to make it.